My name is Haydn. I've been interested in World War I history for a very long time, so much so that it has become a passion. During my research, I came across family letters that brought the realities of war on the home front to light in a very personal way. These letters described a raid on York by a Zeppelin. These first-hand accounts from a friend of the family at the time sparked my interest to research this topic further. My initial research revealed that there had been previous raids by naval forces on Hartlepool, Scarborough and Whitby on December 16th, 1914. These were followed up by lamentable raids by Zeppelins on January 19th, 1915 on King's Lynn and Yarmouth. The subject of the letters themselves from a friend of the family were on a raid at York on the 2nd of May 1916. These directly affected them by the destruction of their house, the loss of a mother, a sister had been killed, and the other sister had been heavily wounded. It was a great blow to a family. Following on from this, we went to York to try and find out a little bit more. We found the graves of some of those that had been killed during the raid in York City Cemetery, and we went to York City Museum to find out more information on the raid itself.
I'm the collections facilitator in the history department here at York Castle Museum.
Thomas Fegan, in The Baby Killers, German Air Raids on Britain in the First World War, he mentions that the first York raid, there were no defences set up at all. Is there anything in the collection to corroborate that with information? Were there any defences at all following previous raids?
Well, we don't have any record in our archives of defences before the first raid in May 1916, because obviously the first raid on Britain had been in 1915 with Zeppelins, and so by 1916, the country as a whole had got used to the idea of Zeppelins, but they never expected them in Yorkshire. After the 1916 raids, though, they set up an anti-aircraft gun, the Searchlight at Acomb, which at that point in time was kind of just outside York. Now it's obviously York is sprawled, it's a part of York, but it was just on high ground, so it could overlook York and spot any Zeppelins coming along. It was in September of 1916 and November of 1916 when two more Zeppelins came along, one at each raid, and the Searchlight spotted them, the guns went off. And although those Zeppelins both dropped bombs, they only caused property damage. They didn't actually injure anybody, which is really good. As for how people responded, we have a few first-hand testimonies of what happened. We know who was killed, who was injured, whereabouts they were in York. And people in York were shocked. They didn't expect this to happen to them. They didn't think that they'd be a location that the Germans would target. And then a little later on, there was a kind of big, how should you put it? It was a fund raised to help the people who had property damage. And a list of the properties did appear in the press for that at the time, but that was quite a while after the raid.
And you were saying you've got a full list of the names of those that were either injured, killed or had property damage. Are they in the collections as such? So you can follow up on them with all the information?
They're in our supporting material. We were so lucky to have the help of the genealogists at York Cemetery for this, because at York Cemetery they've got the graves of the majority of people, if not all of them, who died in the Zeppelin raids. And so we can go there, we can see their headstones. And David Poole, who is one of the volunteers at the cemetery, has done an immense amount of research on these people. He was kind enough to share it with us so that we were able to include their information in our exhibition. And actually they've had a community exhibition here as well, which was very well received.
I'm David Poole. I'm an amateur genealogist connected to York Cemetery.
Well, a German Zeppelin came across, and it appeared to shed some bombs in the Scarcross Road area at about 9:45, and then it killed 3 people there, and then it seemed to drift over the city and deposit some more bombs in the St Saviour's Place, P-Zone Green area, where 6 other casualties occurred.
Emily Beatrice Chapman was a spinster aged 28, living with her parents. I believe she was a clerk at the railway, and the family lived about 30 or 40 yards away from the Avisons in Upper Price Street, and Emily was killed outright by a bomb, and her mother Ada, we believe, was seriously injured and lost part of one of her arms in the raid, but she survived and went on and died in 1930, aged 70.
Well, I think that there was some kind of system whereby the gas company would, if they knew of an imminent raid, would try to lower the gas jets in people's houses, and I believe that was kind of a symbol for people to get prepared. But of course, the people in St Saviour's Place were actually walking about in the street. They'd come out of the houses, and if the people had have stayed inside, they may well have survived and not been harmed.
After my chat with M. Pryor and David Poole, I feel that I know a little bit more about the community of York at the time. There was defences implemented. Raids that occurred afterwards on York were driven away by a searchlight and gun that were put in, meaning that lives were saved due to this preemptive defence. The people of York themselves, however, I feel they generally were not expecting it to happen. They weren't expecting a raid so far north and so inland. People were fascinated by it in the air when the raid was happening. There was accounts of people not running away from the bombs as such, but just standing in the street. Obviously, these things changed with the raids that happened afterwards. People knew the destructive capabilities of these Zeppelins. However, my personal feelings on the matter were that the Chapman family that were affected so heavily, I feel I know a little bit more about them. The letters that I have from them are an insight into the lives of those from the past. Doing the research into this has given more flesh to the bones of the history behind it. It wasn't just a letter from someone in the past. I feel I'm a little bit more connected to them. So when the centenary comes next year, 2nd of May 2016, I feel the date will have a little bit more meaning to my family, and I'll know more about it. It'll be more significant for me.